You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Moline, the co-author of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I'll be sitting down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. As always, please share, comment, subscribe, like, depending on where you're watching or tuning in. Also, if you'd like to continue the conversation beyond the podcast, go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success, and join the Roofing Success Facebook group. Today, another successful roofing contractor with us, roofing contractor top 100, and has found amazing success in his roofing business. But where I became aware of him and why I wanted to have him on the show so much is because of the things that he does in his community beyond his business. And so I'd want to introduce Charles Antis of Antis Roofing. How's it going today, man?
Excellent. I'm super excited to be here doing your show, Jim.
Yeah, man. How's sunny Southern California?
It's actually quite sunny and it's not too hot. So I'm loving it.
Awesome, man. So if you could tell our audience just a little bit about Antis Roofing and how you got into the business and kind of what the path to where you guys have gotten to today.
I'd love to share that story, Jim. Thanks for asking. Antis Roofing, we're a Orange County-based roofing company today. We've been around for 32 years, and we say we keep families safe and dry because we do in the HOA split space. So if you live in a condo or townhome and you vote on your roofing as a whole, then you know of Antis Roofing in Southern California because we keep your community safe and dry. It didn't start, though, like that. You know, for me, I grew up around labor. I'm from Oregon. I'm from a small town called Myrtle Creek where I grew up, and everybody, my dad, my grandpas, they worked in the lumber mills, they worked in the forest. If you were a real man, rugged man there, you had that really dangerous job of a logger that paid well. But it was a good, Dad taught me to do the right thing. Dad just said, you show up for work, he worked hard. Work was not easy. He got injured at work more than once, one time really bad. But my father did the right thing. And I admired men that did the right thing, but work was toil. And I didn't always love to work. But there was one guy when I was young that I remember, his name was John Shirtcliffe, and he didn't have the job in the lumber mill in the forest. He owned the Shell oil plant near the river. And every year in the Wooden Nickel Days parade, the biggest event in town where everybody went, he'd be at the end of the parade and he'd be handing out dimes. And there was something about getting that dime from John Shirtcliffe because he would just look at you and pause on you as if he grabbed you by the shoulders and says, look at you, little 6-year-old boy, look at you. And he did something extra. So there was something that I didn't know what I saw then that I wanted, that now I look back and I want to be like John Shirtcliffe today. I want to pause on people. But it took a while to understand that because I was still in the hard work, do the right thing. And that's how I ended up in California. I ended up in California 15 years later. I'm 21. I was recruited to knock on doors and sell insulation for this big insulation company. And it was in some kind of rebate deal with the gas company. And I could go in, knock on a door, and I could get like $1,000 every sold house. And that was a great deal. And so I'm knocking on doors, doing this, and I'm selling a family. And one of these days, one day I sold this family. And when you're in sales, you have to love, if you want to love your job, you have to love those you sell to. And I loved this family. I loved them. We got along really well. They were deaf. They couldn't hear. And so they taught me to sign. I got along with their kids. And so the next day I was super excited. I'm, 21 years old. I'm in LA. I go into their home in LA and I knock on the door the next day and no one answers. Well, they're deaf. They didn't hear. And I knock again. And this time I see the father. I see him. He sees me and he doesn't answer the door. And I'm so concerned. What does that mean? And suddenly I hear footsteps. And I look, and neighbor I've never met before, but it's neighbor. It's a lady. She's coming at me and she's saying, "You get out of here." And I go, "Well, you don't understand." She goes, "I understand. You just tried to take my handicapped neighbor." And I said, "No, I didn't. No, I didn't." And then she pulls out the contract and she shows me in the contract where I had promised them a savings of greater than what their bill was that I hadn't paid attention to because I didn't realize the claims of the company that I was selling was not fair and was not fair to the customer. And so I remember what my dad taught me when I was young. He said, "Do the right thing." And I couldn't exist in that job. And I couldn't look at that woman in the face who I saw as a villain that day, by the way. But looking back now, that woman, I'm grateful for her because she set me on a course to never, ever do that again, to only do the right thing. And so I got a job. When I looked around, it was the only job I could see in Southern California that I had skill enough to do. It was a labor job, tearing off roofs. And I took a job in roofing, 21 years old, on the roofs in LA. And that's how I got into roofing. So that's that story. But if you want to hear how I started my company, I'll have to segue into the next part.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And, I think that's a big aha moment when you realize that, you were trying to do the right thing, but you weren't, and you didn't even know it, right? Like how, but once you realize that, I'm sure you couldn't do that ever again, right? You can't.
I didn't pause.
Like,
I didn't pause. Like, yeah, looking back right now, saying that to me, I couldn't pause. I wasn't that just go, you do, yes, say yes, go to work, do your job. I never paused and thought about what I was doing until that moment, and it shook me. And so, so I started in roofing, and I didn't like labor, but I loved the problem solving. I found like, wow, if I could solve a leak nobody else could solve. And I learned that the hard way. The first leak I thought I'd solved, I was so proud of. I brought the boss up on the roof to say, "I solved the guy's leak." And he laughed and said, "That's going to leak again." And I said, "What?" He showed me I had backwards lapped the coping, so water was going to trickle right back in. And I thought, I'll never let that happen again. So that's when he didn't have enough work eventually, and I needed to start my own company. That's what I said, "Give me the leak that no one else can solve. I'll fix it for free." And I became the best at this. But a call in that first year from a woman, and she had leaks in every room. So it sounded good. But on the way out to her house, I was noticing that the homes were getting smaller, more disheveled, until finally I turned on that street where her home would be. And I just saw dead grass and set back this small home. And, and I didn't have a choice whether to knock on the door. I didn't want to, but I had shown up. I show up and I do the right thing. I knock on the door. And 3 things happened that changed my life. That probably is the only reason I'm talking to you right now, because it set us on a course. And this woman answers the door. She's about 50 years old, but she's tired. She's got a tired, worried face. And before I can address hello, I haven't said anything yet. I'm hit with the second impression, which is the smell of mildew, which is coming on so strong that I have to recoil. I can't breathe. And as I start to recoil and pull away, wondering what I'm going to say, because I'm leaving now, I feel a tug at my finger. And I look down, and in contrast to the look on my face, the look on my mom's face, there's a 6-year-old girl with blonde hair and the biggest smile ever, because she's got a visitor in her home. And I had no choice but to go with her through that little crowded living room into an undersized hallway. And she turned into this room. And I knew it was her room because she smiled and pointed to this poster on the wall, which was like a My Little Pony poster. But that was the exact moment that I looked down at her feet and saw a mattress with moldy bedding. Mm. And that's that moment that something happened. I paused because I was afraid. I remember that do the right thing. And I knew that they didn't have any money, and I knew they needed at least their roof patched. And I was hoping that's all it was, but I didn't say anything. I was stuck. Not pleasant. And that's often part of the giving process. It has to ease in. You get there by not saying no. You get there by saying maybe. And in that moment, I didn't say no. And then the mom walked in, and something happened after 30 seconds when the mom walked in, and I saw her face in contrast to that smiling daughter of hers. Something came out of me that I never said before. I said, "I'm going to keep you and your family safe and dry." Hmm. I don't remember how I said it, but I said I was going to take care of the roof. And I was scared because I didn't know if I just told a lie. And that's how it felt, because there was that strong, I have to do this no matter what. And I went up on the roof, and it was just gone. There was shot. They needed a new roof. I could see the plywood. I was like, wow, I didn't have that much experience in re-roofing. I was a roof repair expert, but I figured it out, and I got 6 volunteers because I didn't have any employees yet. And we went up on that roof that weekend, and we gave this family of 6 kids a dry roof. It was drippy at Henry's 203, dripping on some cap sheet. We had double lapped, and it was drippy on the outside, but it was dry on the inside. The family stayed in that home. And that is a powerful memory today, because I didn't know what culture was. I have it here today. If I take this out and you go meet our team, you feel it, but it feels just like that camaraderie that you feel when you get together to do good. That's not just the volunteers, those that volunteered, it's those that received it too. It's looking at ourselves in community as having capacity. It's stopping, keeping score for a moment to do what the right thing to do is. It's like when we think of that doctor on an airplane, all of us imagine that doctor on an airplane, when he or she hears the pilot's call, that medical emergency, we all believe that doctor, he or she raises their hand and says, I will, in that moment. And how is that different from me? Who was more qualified on that day 32 years ago, back near the airport in LA, than Charles Antis? Even though I didn't know it, who was more qualified than me? Just like the doctor on that airplane, and you know what that doctor didn't do? He doesn't go to the pilot or to the patient, can I have your card? So he's going to slip him a bill. He did it because he had capacity in that moment, and it was the right thing to do. And that is what I love about the roofing industry, because I found out that we are a troop of those with big hearts and the capability of giving that most basic thing beyond food, it's shelter. And we can give it, and we do. And what I love is I have this family of companies across the country, and we talk about it around the world, and we share how we do this. And I'll make a case for today, and I guarantee I'll win the debate if you don't believe why you'll be better off if you decide to give as much as you can of what you have and what you know the most. And that's what we've done at Antis Roofing from that very day 32 years ago when we donated that roof, and it's changed our course. Today, it's much more organized. We donate all the local Habitat roofs. In 2 weeks, we're going to meet Habitat build site, and we're going to drive our 500,000th nail and our 137,000th tile in the 12-year partnership where we've donated for the last 85 families, over 1.2 million in roofing. And of these 85 families that we've donated the roofing for, along with Eagle Tile, 76% of them are going on to further their education beyond high school. I mean, that is a phenomenal statistic. 3 times that of where they came from, given the crowded conditions that many families live in before they can find full housing. So we get to participate in stuff like this. And what that story does to my team, they know that they're changing the world one roof at a time. What that does to our clients and the community, our stakeholders, all those that we sell in our supply chain, we get to have these experiences together that prove that we're better together. And you know what that does when I have a warranty problem, when I call Eagle Tile, you think they're going to take care of it? Well, they're going to take care of it because they know we're coming from a place of authenticity when we're looking at the issues. So I've discovered the hard way, the best way I could ever run a business. And now I say, there's 200,000 parts. We say every nail matters. There's 200,000 parts in the average roof we install. Every nail going into that roof can make that roof last to its full warranty, or it can't. And that's why we have 30-year roofs everywhere that last 8 to 15 years. In fact, in our industry, it's common every time we go do a bid, where's the last roofer? They're not in business anymore. And yet you're wondering why your roof only went half its life. But when there's purpose in your company and people know why they're there, to keep families safe and dry, whether they're answering the phone and they're taking that leak call, or they're up on their roof and they're driving in that flashing on the edge of the roof, they're tied up and safe because they have to be to do that right, that they're going to keep your family safe and dry.
And having, a lot of companies will have that kind of unique selling proposition, right? That keeping families safe and dry, or, they'll have their tagline. But a lot of times you don't feel that tagline, right? And you don't feel the authenticity, as you mentioned, behind that, right? Behind those words. you told that. I mean, that's an amazing story of how this kind of came together for you in the giving spirit came together for you. How has that, now you own a full 501c3 also? You own a full, a true foundation, or you just still do?
It's a donor advised fund. So it
donor
operates,
advised fund. Okay.
Yeah. And the reason we don't fully engage and create a nonprofit for it is I don't believe the world needs more nonprofits.
That's right.
And it would also require money to all this.
That's right.
All this money is able to, and all of it has to go to charity, to nonprofit. And so it's amazing what that does, though. There's beautiful wins for the community in there. There's also beautiful wins for brand, which I can explain, because a lot of the giving that go to social causes and to nonprofits in your community will end up creating stories that everyone hears. They're heard by word of mouth, which are the most powerful, but they're also told and retold on social media, and often told in email blast, and often told all over the news of your local market. And it's not something that you expect, but once you get it, your heart right, and you start giving with something that truly is near and dear to your heart, like Ronald McDonald House. I wear the socks because my kids, my twins that are healthy today at 7, they were born premature, man. And I had to go in there and lay them skin on skin every day to help them heal. And Ronald McDonald House was there for me. And so I wear the socks, and I've worn them for 2 campaigns. I led the campaign along with Bill Good across the country to get all the roofing contractors a chance to take care of all the roofing of all of the Ronald McDonald House, which we've done. Over 200 companies have volunteered. And I'm wearing them right now, rocking the socks for our capital campaign, because I'm on the board of Orange County Ronald McDonald House. We only have 22 rooms, and we need to double it to 45 rooms. So we need $13 million. We need more now since COVID. There's construction costs are up. You know what? And we've almost got it. We're about ready to make an announcement really soon that we're able to hit that, But when you have real cause, look at the money. I've never raised money like that. I don't know how to raise money. Along with Katie Rucker, my co-chair, we just raised, I can't say the amount, but more than the 13 million. We're going to have announcements soon. And I don't know how to do this, but real causes showing up. And do you know how many of my clients know that story? Millions of people know that story. I didn't know I had potential millions of clients, but I do today because of that story. It's my real story. And I've got lots of real stories. It's not that complicated. It's just what's really authentically happening in your life, sharing with it, and hopefully giving about it, and sharing with your community, sharing with your people about it, and telling them why. And then just being vulnerable in the moment and watching your company attract and keep top talent. And that is not something roofing companies typically say, but it's something the best companies always say: how to attract and retain top talent. In the roofing industry, there's a 54% annual attrition rate. 54% of your listeners, employees, are going to leave the company this year. Imagine the quality of your jobs if you could retain twice that. We have retained twice the national average. The last 2 years we measured, I haven't measured the last couple, and then it won't be the same, but it'll be in the 80 percentile. And so it's exciting when you can see that, when you can see what your team does. And in the super adaptive world that we're in right now, imagine how much you need your team today. And you need to tell them, I believe in you and I'm going to invest in you. And even though it's scary, that's adapt and grow in the new environment. And if the company there, if the clients out there don't know your real story, why you exist, you won't be in business. Different world we're walking into. You have to tell your why. It doesn't have to be like mine. It doesn't have to be that you're donating roofs to Ronald McDonald House. It could be that you love to go speak up for your industry and go to Washington every year on the roofing in DC, along with our CEO, Reed Ribble. I mean, that's something that's really powerful. That'll help you sell, and it'll also make your team proud. I do that. I bring guys from the field to Washington, and I have guys that were born in Mexico that are first generation trying to get their citizenship here, and they're marching, and they're having personal stories that congressmen are telling them. And by the way, I've been showing up doing this for years, showing up. They don't care about me as much as they care about our people. My guys that do the work, showing up and talking to them. But my point is by telling your real story, getting involved, trying to make it better, never a better time to do that. And share about what's working, share what's not working. unless it injures somebody, don't share that story, but share what's working. And then we'll all be better off. And then your company will thrive. And we discovered that the hard way. I didn't want to talk about the roofs we were giving until we donated the Habitat roof, and they put in the paper, Antis Roofing, donating roofs, transforming lives. And I thought that sounded blasphemous. Wow. Man, you can't write that. But then pretty soon we started trying to experiment with the messaging, and because we were doing roofs, we were trying to transform lives. And now we see what we've done, what we've been able to do together, and it's pretty powerful. And that gives us a hell of a culture, man. I mean, didn't know this was possible, that you could have a culture like this where people genuinely get together, thinking we're changing the world together, and doing it by keeping more and more families safe and dry.
Let's go back on this journey a little bit, because you didn't always, it's easy looking back and saying, here, this is where we are now, and we've built this, all of these great things, and it's so deeply ingrained in the culture of our company. But it started from that one roof, right? That one challenge, the family that was having a challenge, that you came to their aid and did the right thing. What kind of challenges kind of came along the way as you were building this culture and like finding your way through this?
Yeah, well, good question, because it didn't. The story stayed mum for 20 years, but it kept repeating itself. And this is I think this is a great question, because this is something that I know a lot of your listeners can relate. Although they may not have realized they're even doing it, but me and so many of your listeners, we can't let somebody have a leaky roof just because they don't have the money to pay for it, which looks like you go out, you see it, you realize, oh my God, they don't have any way. And you say to your team, hey guys, put some tarp up. I'm not saying you're going to rebuild a house that's dry rotted, but how do you turn your back on someone that in the moment you could get dry? And that's the thing that we did. Now, we ended up donating a lot of too, but it started with that patch. It started with, okay, and then the patch failed, but it was like a house that taking care of kids. So we ended up replacing the roof when we could. That's a powerful thing when you use the power of maybe, when you just don't say no. When someone asks you for something, say, this is not what or don't say positive words. Say, let me think about it. Say maybe, and just go to sleep on it. Give 24 hours and watch what happens. I don't know how this stuff works, man, but it happens over and over again. All asks come in that I have no business fielding. My team says, we can't possibly do that. And I'll like, well, just give me an hour and I'll make a phone call. It might not cost me anything. I may not even give anything, but by connecting people, just by saying, thinking yes, so many good things happen. I get to be involved in so many world-changing stories right now, and all because I just don't say no. And so there's power in it. And that's what I want the listeners to realize. Once you're doing that, and if you don't have a giving heart, I can tell you that it's empathy. It's like a muscle. It's like bench pressing. You guys have bench pressed before. We went to that little stage, either 18 or 28, or maybe you did it like me at 39. You start bench pressing a lot. You're trying to empathy is the same thing. Show up awkwardly delivering food one day for elders. Show up at a blood drive, volunteer, donate blood, do things like that. And all of a sudden your empathy muscle starts to grow. And I have a huge empathy muscle today, so I can really speak to it. I also know how to leverage it today, because once you do it, you better tell it. If you don't tell it, it's not retellable. If you don't tell it and people don't get it, it's not repeatable. Then you're wasting people's time. It's really powerful if I can do something that awakens my people, that awakens my team, that awakens me, that also awakens my potential customers. And that's why we do this. And when you start doing this, man, it's a powerful thing. And then pretty soon it starts to organize itself, because you start to attract top brands. We're a small $20 million company in Orange County, but you know who mentors me? I'm just saying this to be funny. I'm not bragging, but just Disneyland, like the best brands in the world, Edwards Lifescience, the $80 billion brands that, because they know that I'm trying to do the right thing. And they send their people. I have personal conversations. The best brands share the best information with the best trusted brands, and they don't measure you by size. I didn't know that. I just fell into it. by talking about why we donated the habitat roofs,
Yeah.
by talking about why we're going to have our 50th blood drive next month here. We've had it since the pandemic at a roofing company where we clean 7,000 feet of space, and we bring in like, we've raised like something like 3,000 or 4,000 life-saving units of blood, you know.
Wow.
It's like, because we can. I mean, it's so weird how this ends up growing a stronger roofing company. But once you start realizing you can have impact, wow, you can really have impact. And I think that's the powerful thing for you to know. No matter the size of your company, you can raise your hand, get involved to the NRCA, get involved in the Ronald McDonald. Hey, if you're in Orange County, I'll let you in on one of our things. I'll gladly share the light with you, because I've learned that a deferred light is better than a spotlight. Come with me, man. Let's do it together. And I know there's a lot of people around. If you want to do Habitat for Humanity, Night of GAF, I know Owens Corning, they have they'll do it for you, man. They do it for you. They'll set it up. All you do is donate the labor. They'll then donate the material. But experiment with this. And then if it's not roofing, if you have cause that's near and dear because you had an aunt with cancer or something, then man, to relate everyone else's stories out there, because every family has a touch with cancer or a touch with Alzheimer's. So get involved in a cause that fulfills you and talk about it. Volunteer at the local board. And this is a hard one for a lot of roofers, because I used to see myself as this dirty hand. I don't want to talk about what I call myself. I didn't graduate college. But now, man, I'm on 8 boards, national boards, local boards,
Wow.
whether it's a local college board, Cal State Fullerton, you know, there's United Way, Orange County Ronald McDonald House, Orange County Habitat for Humanity. I mean, whatever, the Roofing Alliance. I see myself as that entity out there that keeps families safe and dry, that knows how to talk about it, that knows how to share about it. I don't hide my hand in my pocket anymore. And so what I'm telling you is get involved in the nonprofit, the organized nonprofit whose board members have what you want, and you will become what they are. You will have the traits they have, and they will look at you and go, wow, I'm so glad I have this professional this roofing pro here, that literally keeps everything protected that I love in our community. And he's volunteering his voice in the community. So I'm saying, get involved. You have no idea how welcome your voice is. There's hundreds of there's at least a dozen of us around the country that are really loud like me, that speak to the good of our trade. And wow, what a great time it is to be a roofing pro. We have so much organized focus on lifting our trade and our communities together. And we're doing it in concert. So get involved, and you'll sell, and you'll be heard inside and outside your company.
When did you realize that this kind of was starting to work as your company culture? When did you realize, when it was like, wow, you realize who you were as a company, maybe?
Yeah, that's a great question. So why does this help you sell, and does it? And there's a lot of layers to that. I did it because it was the right thing. I talked about it because someone else did. And I talked about it because I was desperate, but I didn't get it. And then one day, about 10 years ago, we weren't talking about this. You didn't hear us ever talking about it. About 10 years ago, I'm in my Habitat for Humanity board meeting, which I recently joined. And there was a marketing expert in there who understand the demographics of society and what they feel and why. And they're there to announce the top brands of the nonprofits in the country and by region. And their findings were that Habitat for Humanity was one of the 3 brands and it was almost every year, along with American Red Cross and Girl Scouts, for reasons they just were. But then and I remember that, and I believe that. And he said, why? He said, there's a problem with the Habitat brand is people think you give away homes, and you don't sell homes. You just give an advantage to them, so, which is true. But he also said this is what I told him, and this is what changed our marketing. He said, when the consumer hears your stories and has alignment with your values, and your stories ring with authenticity, then all of their other decisions will fall on their ear compared to that. So in other words, price is no longer leading the discussion. And when you're trying to sell roofs with low price, you keep selling these roofs that companies are going out of business. You know, and so I run with me. I believed it because this guy was so giving in the way he gave us this information. And then I started going out, I started talking about it. I started talking about why Habitat donates roofs. And then I had a really bad year. Jim, I mean, I thought we were going out of business. We're still donating all the Habitat roofs, which cost us like 60 grand, and I barely have enough for payroll. So I'm at my Habitat annual strategy board meeting. And instead of talking about Habitat, I was selfish that day. And I was kind of crying to the board members, like, oh, I don't know how we're going to make it. I'm trying to get other roofers to donate and no one will donate. And then Gladys, who worked for Habitat, she's a marketing manager there. Gladys says to me, she says, Charles, stop telling our story. Tell the story. Tell them why you give. I had to think about that for a moment. And I thought back 32 years ago, a story I just hadn't told a lot. And I told the story for the first time. At least I don't remember telling it before, but I kind of tried to tell that story of that woman with that little girl who slept on a moldy mattress. And for the first time, people in my company started to get it. Instead of them looking at Habitat builds as a burden, they started wanting to show up, remembering, that there's people out there that don't have those things that we have that we take for granted. And so, it was that, and it started to ring with authenticity inside and outside my company. And there's different levels of learning how to talk about it. There's different levels of it. I'm very experienced in talking about the good that we do today. I know the banana peels. I'll sometimes go to the edge, but you need to be edgy in talking about it because you need it to be heard. Yeah. But when you're really doing good and it shows, it's not just an annual basket drive, but you're really doing good and talking about it. Don't be afraid, because even bad messaging on your part will end up, because your competitors, they'll point at you every time you slip. They go, oh, look at Anthony, he's so overbragging. But people will hear that. They go, okay, but they won't tell the negative messenger, but they'll start to watch you and they'll say, well, I'll be damned. Maybe they didn't message you well that time, but I admire them even more now because they're fucking really doing it. You have to bleep that. Yeah. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry about that. But, I wanted to say that for emphasis, because show up and do it, and that's the first F-bomb I think I've ever dropped on a podcast.
But that a lot of times that's what I think, even the contractors that I know well that do a lot of work in the community, whether it's through donating money, time, resources, whatever it is, I think a lot of times they shy away from that conversation about it. They try to stay out of the spotlight, and they feel like it's I don't know, tacky or something like that to have that conversation, right?
Yes.
But it's not true.
Let me tell you, I've been preaching against that, and I've been very successful in because 200 companies that a lot of them said, well, I'll donate the roof to Ronald McDonald House, but I'm not going to talk about it. And I answered back, if we don't talk about it, then how is it going to grow? How's anybody going to know? And we win that argument. But I used to be them. And let me define that, because I have a great friend. I couldn't let anybody have a leaky roof just because I didn't have the money to pay for years, but I never donated a Habitat roof until this guy, Greg Wise, came along. And Greg Wise was a very famous local Catholic here who I knew, and he would say, hey man, you just got to donate. He'd donate all this money to Habitat. And he said, just donate a roof here. You're going to love it. I told him, well, I don't want people to know about it. It feels wrong to talk about it. It feels like God's going to strike me with lightning. It feels, all these things that I felt funny to me. Don't let the left hand know what the right hand's doing. I don't even know where that came from, just in my head from when I was a kid. All these biases. And then also, I don't want people to know they're going to ask for more. All these things are going through my head. For 2 years, he begged me. I finally donated a roof because Greg begged me. And I donated a roof. And because we donated that roof, man, look at the Habitat relationship now that we've talked about, millions know about. Look at the Ronald McDonald Initiative that we're also getting involved in, that millions know about. We get to do so much, all because of Greg Wise, who for 2 years nudged me. And I love telling you that because I found out 2 weeks ago that Greg passed, and I want to honor him. And when I go to drive that 500,000th nail in a couple of weeks at the Habitat for Humanity build, I'm going to drive it in memory of Greg Weiss. And I hope that some of his family's there, but if they're not, I will gladly still honor him in that moment, because of Greg Wise, man, we've been able to have a huge impact. And I'm a really happy CEO. You'll hear me say, because I get to speak all the time in Orange County, and I'm the luckiest CEO seat in Orange County. I get to sit there. I mean, there's a few probably just about as good, but my gosh, how could you have it better? And if you follow me around, you'll see why. And if you follow me around and have the interaction I have with my people and my clients and with my community and with the nonprofits we get to serve, and how that all connects back into the quality of our roofs, then you'd see why. So it's a lucky place that I get to have today. But who knew? Who knew that would, it wasn't what my intent was. It was kind of, I call it my lucky discovery, desperation at times. I didn't talk about it until I thought I had to, because I wasn't selling roofs. And I heard that guy say that the customer's gonna not look at price as the number one thing anymore. And there's no way we could be low bid when we're giving the best product. And so it was a tough learning experience, but I need it. I got it today. I understand it today. And that's why I talk about it. And, and by the way, if you're listening to this, just follow me on LinkedIn, because I can't help but be loud. Follow my company on all social media, but I'll post at least 5 times a week on LinkedIn, and you'll see what I get to do. You'll see the impact I get to participate in inside, outside my company, inside, outside community, and across the country, and how that you'll see how it affects the quality of our roofs. And it's an exciting thing to do. And there's a lot of people like me that are doing the same in different trades.
I think that a lot of times we start we'll start a company to impact ourselves and our families, right? And we may not have the vision beyond that, right? Because it's just, everyone listening knows the struggle of starting a business, right? This is not an easy thing. There are ups and downs. Yeah. You mentioned, sitting there in that room, talking to the board members about, you're not sure if you're going to be able to stay in business, right? There's there's ups and downs in this, but I think it's and why I wanted to have you on is because just to have that conversation that there's more to it, right? You can impact a lot more than just your family's financial future, to that. Things like that.
You're right, because we have to be, you have to start off, I got to get this for me, but it's just that I'm lucky in my life discovery was it never was comfortable for me to hoard and grab. And also, to be honest, I'm not the best investor, okay, I'll throw a 50,000 here and it's gone, but when I invest in my company, it really works in the people. And when I invest in the community, oh my God, I'm getting 20 times the value. So it's something weird about that. It's like I have a mind shift. I don't want to accumulate oodles of gold for my children. I want to build this company and create impact. Gold will destroy my children. Teaching them how to create impact will awaken them to a real life. And so I do say that now. It seems weird, but I look at my company and it really has a lot of value. It's worth a lot of money. It has pockets of cash in it, like in the donor advised fund. It has, because we built it right. But and I don't have a lot outside of that. I just don't. And I'm completely okay with that. But our giving and the impact of that is huge. And I don't think I could be in a better position. And by the way, the more stuff you own, the more stuff you hang on to, that you intend to hang on to, the more burden you have, no matter what you say. Yeah. It's a Western thing. I don't really get not seeing that way. I'm very much that way too, but I challenge my thinking. And so what I have today, Jim, is something that I'm trying to figure out a way to say it. I'm saying it this way lately. I have capacity, which means I don't have everything planned out, because the moment I do, I have no bandwidth to have more capacity. So my mind says yes to everything. My mind says maybe to everything I hear. It puts a pause on it, maybe a 24-hour or a 36-hour pause, but it comes back to it. And because of, if I don't think that way, if I think there isn't enough, who has never been right? Who said there wasn't enough? That person is always right. But experiment with imagining that you have capacity to be more, see more, do more, lift more. What if you imagine you had the capacity to touch millions of people and lift them? If you do imagine that, that will happen. That's what we get to experience. And so the capacity of Antis Roofing, the capacity of our leadership today is really powerful because of how we hold it. The capacity of the leadership of the National Roofing Contractors Association is also at a really high caliber today. It's a lot of collaboration, both from the last, from Reed Ribble through Bill Good that led up to Reed Ribble, through the staff, the board members. We have a tremendous asset of people that want to make it today. And so it's a wonderful time to be networked in the roofing industry. It also lifts and it helps you be heard when you need it to clients.
For sure. That's awesome. I heard you say it and I wrote it down here. Your impact capacity. Like, I don't know if you meant to say it that way, but like the way it came out, you have a capacity to impact others in ways that you'll never understand if you open yourself up to it. Now
I'm writing that down because I always get better things said out of that quick talk.
That's right.
I'm writing a book, Jim. I'm writing a book right now, and we're getting it out. We're pitching it to publishers soon, and I'm meeting with my co-writer Jay Golden, who wrote the book Retellable, and we're meeting today. And we don't know. We've talked about the art of maybe. We've talked about exponential generosity. Maybe it's going to be impact capacity.
I think
that's how things start. So,
I think I might have titled your book. Yeah,
I'm going to bring it up. If you name it, you're going to get credit.
That's awesome, man. And I love that you just continue this journey and add to you continue to add to your journey, right? And add to the impact that you have in the world. But now bringing it back to for the business owner, I mean, really today's biggest challenge in the roofing industry is that attracting and retaining top talent. So if you could just speak to what this has done for your business in doing that. You said you had essentially 100% retention rate, right? For many years now, maybe because of
it was 92 and 93. When the average of the country was 45 and 46% retention, we were at 92 and 93.
That's awesome.
But I can put it this way. It's not just the giving. There's a connection that you have to make as a leader. So it's not just giving. What you need to do, you need to show your generosity to your team. You're going to be generous with them until you can't skip over them, which I've done a little bit in the past. I not knowing that there was enough initially, but you need to involve them and tell them their story. And the reason it mattered is in the beginning, when I was just donating, I was putting a burden on sales. I was putting a burden on production, more roofs to run without getting compensation. It worried them. I was like Will Ferrell in Old School when he's streaking down the road, and his wife comes in. Come on, honey, get in the car and go, say, honey, everybody's doing it. That's how I was in my company. I was all enthusiastic, but it took a couple of things. Telling my story, telling them why, which is, that was a huge step, but it's also in listening to their stories. Being one who talks a lot, it took me a while to listen. And, you can't communicate unless you know the audience. And my own audience, my own company, I didn't understand some of their pain. And so the other thing that I did that I strongly recommend that I could help any of you get is I started getting these giving cards. And a giving card is a little gift card that can only be redeemed at a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. So you could only give it to Habitat. And so what we would do is we'd give one out for excellent job. And then in the next team meeting the next week, we would take the person up that got the card, and they would be asked to tell which nonprofit they gave the card to and why. And that was so powerful, man. When somebody in finance that no one likes, this is all fictitious. There's nobody in finance, but someone in finance that no one likes stands up and they tell that story of why they give to Ronald McDonald House, and they talk about their niece who almost died when she was a little girl. And suddenly that person in sales that didn't like that person's finance, suddenly all of a sudden they get them. Oh my God, I get why she's that way. I'd be that way too if I lived. All of a sudden that stories of why, what matters and why, all of a sudden, boom, we're a family. We trust each other. And so we can trust each other to take each other with us on our journeys to make things better. And the company is also willing to invest. So we do all the things that we see Disneyland and all these companies do that they share with us, man. We give them a bunch of days off that they can do volunteering. We dollar match some of their donations. We even give them days off to take care of their pets, which I got directly from the HR director of Disney. It served on the college board with me. And so, but we learn what works and then we do it. And it doesn't, if you're a roofer like me, well, how can we afford that? Start with But once you realize other companies are doing it, you start to share. And, and even in the giving, man, you can't afford to give a lot. Well, you can show up and talk about it a lot. So if you have a cause that's near and dear to your heart, you can emulate companies like Coca-Cola or Antis Roofing and how they talk about it. And you can, as long as you're really doing it, as long as you're really showing up. So there's a real way to get there. And there are shepherds all along the way. But today is such, I forgot what your question was now. I forgot what I was answering. I kind of swam off course.
It's kind of around what it's done for your company and attracting and retaining your top talent, but that makes perfect sense. And what I heard in that maybe people, just to kind of summarize it a little bit, is you initially had your vision of what was important to you to donate through the Habitat, the Ronald McDonald House, things like that. But you've given your employees a way to do that for their own causes, and that expands the giving into other places, but it also touches that person individually, right? Like that they get to maybe donate to the Alzheimer Foundation or something like that, that's so near and dear to their heart. But it's because of the framework that you put in place that they were able to do that. So now they feel more connected to the company.
Yeah, and we're part of all these stories, and we get it. Like Red Cross was never, I donated blood. My dad always donated blood. He got the gold pin. He donated every 2 months, but it wasn't going to be my thing. But when somebody brings it in, a VP, and they want to do it, all of a sudden that's my story too. You'd think I was on the board. I talk about it so much, but I'm not. But I am. It's like I am. I have another one getting involved with Boys and Girls Club. I get it. It's like I get to live it too. This is so much fun. We're all living each other's stories, and they're really important stories in the community that tie everyone together. And what's cool is all the stories that you see me in. You don't see me in any political discussions, but I don't need to go there. Why would I ever think to go there? I stay in between all that so I can have real impact. I would never go there and lose my voice to do what I can do here, because this bridge that I'm on goes all the way to everybody. It's a great awesome, place to be.
That's so cool. And I think that's what everyone talks about, this company culture and how to build company culture and team building activities. But I think the connection to things like this is the higher level of all of those things, right? You could take everyone to dinner and have a nice Christmas party and do things like that, but it doesn't touch them the way that giving does. So you're right. This is creating, like, I'm going to give you a way to look at it. If you were to look at things according to emotional intelligence, that people don't really make decisions in the way that they cognitively, well, I'm going to go with Charles because he donates roofs to Habitat and he must be. No, it's like this. It's like we're on the plains 10,000 years ago and we're traveling and nomadically, and we're all afraid we're going to be killed. If you talk loud, you might get struck. So you don't talk loud, you fall in line. But you see this guy, and this sounds like I'm bragging, but I want you to hear what I'm saying. You see this guy and he has this emblem on his head, and it means, I believe everybody deserves a decent place to live. Maybe it's a roof. He's got this tattooed on his head. He lives it. Man, you put your family with him. Or if he has this other thing that says he believes it is unimaginable to ignore sick children, like that Ronald McDonald House theme, man, if they know that, then I'm safe to travel with. And so Antis Roofing, to our subconscious minds, to our reptilian brains, Antis Roofing is safe to travel with. It is higher level. It's, and one way to say it, it's Jedi stuff. It doesn't make sense to me until I started living it. I understand it today. I don't explain it really well, but it's really what causes people to trust. It's I talked recently to a brain expert who I feel totally aligned with her, that people think they make their decisions consciously. 95% of all decision-making is made with the subconscious brain. The subconscious brain, it's attracted to sex, but it's really, what's really sexy to the subconscious brain is someone that keeps you safe and dry, someone that believes every family deserves to be there and to be fed and to be nurtured, and that every person deserves to be paused on. That's what I get to participate in. That's the feeling that people get also inside my company. So when the people inside my company show up
to the client's house, knowing what our intent is on the work order, they fulfill it. That's why they stay here. And those that don't do that will self-select out.
So I know this may feel like a loaded question right now, but it's the way I like, it's kind of the way I like to end shows. And it's what is the greatest insight that you could share with our audience that has helped you find success in your roofing business?
Well, I'll go deep on that, really. I mean, I could say it's where we started, do the right thing, always show up, do the right thing. My dad taught me that. It was so important. But I think the other place we went that I would say is, man, it's kind of like we're all connected. We're all one. If you could see it as that we're all connected. And if you could imagine that you and your company were capacity for everyone, that means you can err on the side of generosity for your employees, for your clients, and for all of your stakeholders, even those that sell to you. You can err on the side of generosity with all of your stakeholders, that you have capacity. I think that's the most beautiful thing that I have to continually work to keep my mindset in, because it's so easy to go into that, I want no one to succeed but myself, which is a line from a famous movie, There Will Be Blood. But I love that line because it's the worst of men, but I get to participate in what is the best of mankind. And by the way, philanthropy, its Greek rooted meaning, the etymology of the word says philanthropy is the love of mankind. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Awesome, man. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more sales through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com and get a copy of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.